Benj Pasek, you're one of the writers of Good Afternoon from Spirited, which made the Oscar shortlist for Best Original Song. Now, you and your writing partner, Justin Paul, worked on all of the songs for the film. What stands out to you about Good Afternoon as a particularly special musical number?
We are really proud to be a part of Good Afternoon, and it's been really exciting to see how it's sort of taken on a life outside of the film. Originally, the Spirited is based on A Christmas Carol, and it sort of flips it on its head. And in the original Dickens novel, Good Afternoon was something that Ebenezer Scrooge would say when he wanted to basically shut the door in people's faces and wish them a terrible day. And it's basically akin to like an FU bomb in 1800s Dickensian vernacular. And the idea was actually pitched originally by Ryan Reynolds to say, what if actually this term really in the 1800s did mean FU, not just was imbued with the kind of FU quality, but it was sort of like, a way to say piss off, essentially. And so we thought, wouldn't it be so fun to take that notion and to basically write our own PG-13 or R-rated Mary Poppins song that really used, that turn of phrase. And what's so great about the song in the way that people are using it now is that I have my niece and my nephew and all of my friends' kids who will call me up or FaceTime me. And it's this subversive way to, say a bad word without actually saying a bad word at all. So it's been really, really cool to see how it's sort of translated beyond the film. And it's also a really wonderful thing to see Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell get to do what they do best in the sense of being comedy men, but then also exercise this whole new element that we've never seen before of them being song and dance men and singing and tap dancing and imbuing the comedy that we know from them, but putting it in the world of musical theater. So the combination of all of that came together in a really fun way. And yeah, the song Good Afternoon was born.
And what is it like writing for two personalities that are so distinctive and sort of iconic as Will Ferrell's and Ryan Reynolds is, not just their voices, but their comedic personalities?
I think for us, it's so helpful to be able to know who you're writing for and who you have in mind. I'm sure that's the case with many songwriters, but particularly for theatrical songwriting, where you're really trying to write from the perspective of a character delivering something or somebody, saying, words out loud that are coming from a place of character. Having the body of work and the comedic genius of a Ryan Reynolds and a Will Ferrell, you imagine what they're going to say before they say it, and the song can begin to write itself because you have their voices and you have their comedic stylings already in your head because it's so part of pop culture. So the collective group, which was me, Justin Paul, Kion Hersey, Sakari Jones, and Mark Sonnenblick, like we just would honestly talk and pretend like we were Will Ferrell or pretend like we were Ryan Reynolds, and anything that didn't sort of pass the test of something that would sound like they were, saying it didn't get in the song. So it's amazing. And the other element too that I think is really cool is, these guys don't have to, they don't have to do anything that they're not already great at. They're legends. And the fact that they want to try their hand or, try their feet, I should say, in tap dancing and singing and dancing and do something that's totally outside of their comfort zone is so cool. So, that having them go along the journey and being expand their comfort zone and play in our arena, which is a little more in the sort of theatrical musical theater world was such a thrill. So yeah, they really were game for the challenge and they exceeded all of our expectations.
There are a lot of moving parts in that production number for Good Afternoon. Is it complicated to write a song for that's going to have so many background characters and extras and background singers and dancers?
Totally. I mean, there's, it's a huge production number and, dance is a huge element of it. So knowing when we have to create space for dance, there's a huge cameo, a couple of them, but there's a Judi Dench cameo that comes about. There's just a lot of moving parts. So for us, we really had to construct the song along with Sean and John, who wrote the script, and really be very, very involved in understanding how the story was going to unfold. What were the different places that we could go to? Where were the different cutaways that we could go? So the writing of the song wasn't sort of just, hey, we're going to go to a piano and we're going to come up with sort of an emotional moment. It was really having to be really aligned and know how we were unspooling story along with the script. And so everything had to go back and forth and make sure that we could deliver on some of these ideas. And even writing a line of like Judi Dench, it's like at first we didn't think that Judi Dench would ever make a cameo. And we were still like, okay, should we put this line in the movie? And then lo and behold, like Judi Dench shows up and makes a cameo, or there's an Oliver Twist reference, or all of these different things. And then getting to see what's feasible and what's not became sort of the joy of putting it together with the whole team, music directors and choreographers. And it really was a huge village to be able to create it on the creative level. And then also all of the singers and dancers that made it come alive.
And I imagine it must also be incredibly satisfying as a songwriter to have the resources to, put on these huge production numbers and get to see your work kind of brought to life in such a grand, spectacular fashion.
It's pretty unbelievable. I think we feel very, very lucky to be living in a time when folks are embracing traditional musical theater on the big screen, and a big pastiche kind of production number at this scale is something that I can't imagine would have happened 10 years ago. And I just feel very, very lucky that we get to be alive during a time when, it's like a harkening back to a different era, and getting to put a little bit of a subversive spin on that, and again, as you're saying, getting the resources and the big tap dancing numbers and the tons of chorus singers and all of that. It can create something really spectacular that usually is just reserved for a Broadway stage. So being able to bring that to the big screen and getting audiences to get to experience that is so thrilling. And those are the movies that I grew up loving. So getting to be a part of that here was really, really special.
As you mentioned, you worked with additional songwriters, Sakari Jones, Kyan Hersey, and Mark Sonnenblick. How different is the experience writing with a team like that compared to when it's just you and Justin?
Yeah, I think Justin and I were really excited about the idea of just bringing in different perspectives, people from different backgrounds, especially folks who are younger writers and folks who have a tradition of coming from writing theatrically, but might not have been able to work in film quite yet. And so getting to have a collaborative group of people, we got ideas that we would have never gotten. We got to build upon each other, and got to create something that I don't think Justin and I would have ever done on our own. So for us, it was really, really cool to just sort of expand our process, but also bring folks from the theatrical world into this film world, and just, get to create something that was totally unlike something that we would have done on our own. And we were doing this in the middle of the pandemic is when we were writing it. So it all existed on Google Docs. We would, start writing. One of our collaborators had a day job, so she couldn't start writing until 9 p.m. So we would really start our sessions at 9 p.m. and they would go till 2 a.m. We would be on Zooms. We would all be on these things called comfies, which are basically like, giant, like duvets that we would sort of wear as, while we sip tea and told jokes. And it was like an extended sleepover. And, we had a Good Afternoon, I think, is like a 55-page Google Doc where we would go line by line, and we were all sort of building on each other's work like a Lego set, writing interior rhymes, pitching things to each other, and just that kind of collaborative writer's room, essentially, that, you have in TV and that you have in pop songwriting, but you don't really get often in theatrical songwriting because of how specific and narrative the song needs to be. It was such a new experience for us, and one that we hope we get to do again. And we found it to be really, really thrilling and really, really fun.
And the visual style and things that go into a feature film are different than what goes on to a Broadway stage. How different is it writing songs for one versus the other?
Yeah, I think for the Broadway stage, you have to be very reliant on the music and the lyrics as the main thing that's communicating story. And with film, you get to cut away to different shots. You can do time passage in really interesting ways. You can do close-ups, which can indicate things. And so there's such a collaboration that's necessary on film, because it's really who's carrying the weight here of the narrative storytelling. And sometimes it's the responsibility of the music and lyrics, and sometimes it's not. And in film, there are so many more departments that can carry the narrative weight, and you just have to have a constant back and forth to really be collaborative and know when it's your time to step away and when it's your time to really take up that space. And it's a constant back and forth. I think in theater, really the music and the lyrics are the principal drivers of most things, and so you have less of that negotiation.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on this film, and Good Afternoon in particular, and best of luck with it going forward.
Thank you so much, Daniel.